All right, let's talk about Ron DeSantis was traveling overseas. We brought you a little bit of that. And, you know, it's funny because originally the media was they were very bullish on Ron DeSantis. Conservative media was really excited about Ron DeSantis, really sort of propping him up. We know Rupert Murdoch over at Fox News and with his whole empire told Ron DeSantis, like, we're going to be all in for you guys. The trip did not appear to go too well for him. Now, I want to say these are headlines that were compiled by a Trump operative.
Yes.
However, I can confirm from my own perusal of the news that the coverage of his overseas trip was almost, I don't know if I saw a single positive report from it.
No.
It's hard to think of one. So put this up on the screen. This is a compilation of some of the headlines that the Trump campaign is flagging about his trip overseas. Politico says, Ron DeTedious. DeSantis underwhelms Britain's business chiefs. The Independent says Ron DeSantis critics gloat over brutal reviews of his UK trip. Horrendous low wattage board. NBC News, I think he's in trouble. Growing number of Ron DeSantis donors and allies hope for a shakeup. Newsweek, Ron DeSantis' presidential ambitions endure another bumpy week. Roll call, what is Ron DeSantis doing? Intelligencer, all of Ron DeSantis' crimes against good etiquette. I'm sure Saagar will be very interested in that one.
I should.
Mediaite, watch Ron DeSantis loses his shit, yelling at reporter over torch allegations. We're going to show you that one. Rishi Sunak avoids Ron DeSantis on his UK visit. The list goes on. Republican mega donor withdraws support. Watch DeSantis does that weird bobblehead thing. Jason Miller to Newsmax, DeSantis running into a buzzsaw. Right now, Ron DeSantis lacks the killer spirit. After stumbles at home, he heads abroad to find his footing. That's probably the most even-handed one. That was from the New York Times. Ron DeSantis just lost another donor. Trump tossed DeSantis by 46 points. Fox News poll, Trump still top 2024 Republican preference. DeSantis is slipping. So not exactly what he was hoping for from his big, very intentional international trip where he wanted to portray himself as a statesman. Many aspiring presidential candidates will do this sort of thing. The idea is that it's going to help voters imagine you in that role as being commander-in-chief and meeting with foreign leaders and dignitaries, et cetera. If that was the goal, I don't think that this worked out for him too well.
No, I don't think so. I also think it's a stupid custom. People always do it. Like Romney went to London, remember that? And he pissed off the Brits during the London Olympics.
Don't remember that. Obama, I do vaguely remember that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Obama went to, I think it was Munich or Berlin maybe, and anyway, so he went to Berlin. And everyone's like, oh my, a bunch of Germans showed up and it's like, wow, the world loves Obama. Turns out that that's not actually any important metric in terms of being president. The custom probably dates back to Nixon, the idea that Nixon was like this elder statesman. That's where people get the idea that it should come from. I personally don't think it really matters at all. I'm not saying global experience doesn't matter, but in terms of electability, which is I
can imagine a case being made that the Obama trip actually did help him because, I mean, he was, this junior senator, he'd spent 3 minutes in the Senate, and his whole appeal, especially within the Democratic primary, but also in the general election, was very foreign policy based. Criticizing both Hillary Clinton and then ultimately John McCain for the Iraq War. So I could see in that instance how it may have been beneficial for him. And I'm sure, I don't remember specifically, I'm sure he got glowing media coverage for it as well. So I can imagine how that sort of burnishes credentials. But if that was the goal for Ron DeSantis, he clearly didn't achieve it.
Absolutely. Also, as you referenced, and this is the thing I keep coming away with DeSantis. DeSantis, the biggest news that he made when he was in Japan for his trip was having his bizarre, weird bobblehead response whenever he was asked about the polls vis-a-vis Trump. What that actually just showed to me is I'm like, dude, you don't really seem to do well under pressure. Same thing here. So the Guantanamo allegations around DeSantis have been flying around for a while. Who knows whether they're true or not? Actually, to DeSantis' credit, he's like, this is coming from a detainee. You think they wouldn't want to make news? Maybe, maybe not. We know that he served there at least for some time. The thing is, though, wouldn't you be prepared for the question? And from what comes in this response, I think what you're going to see is, I think he's been dealing with the C League for a long time. And if he were to ever become president, this would be the easiest question he would ever get. And clearly, he gets flustered and he doesn't handle the pressure all that well. Let's take a listen to his response.
Governor, during your time at Guantanamo, did you witness any incidents?
No, none of all that's BS. No, totally BS.
Governor, did you say you were present during those meetings? Is that
Who said that?
He detainees have told us that.
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts.
What did you think, Krystal? I mean, I could see how some right-wing accounts might spin that. I was like,
Yeah, they were like, oh, he owned.
I didn't see it. I saw him get pretty flustered. The thing is with Trump is Trump had a remarkable ability to laugh at them, and then if they were to really gonna push it, he would be like, excuse me, and really own them. I watched it happen several times. It seems insecure just to me because I think it comes out guns blazing out of the gate. And he doesn't ever try to disarm sometimes with humor, which is really just an underlying confidence issue, I think, whenever you're dealing with this.
Yeah, he's got thin skin and he gets ruffled easily.
He does.
I mean, that's what it looks like to me. And, you know, never let him see you sweat. And clearly on this trip, he had 2 instances at least where people with, you know, pretty obvious questions, things that have been floating around the press, his poll numbers in particular, where he reacts emotionally. And that's not something you ever want to do. I mean, really, that's a good lesson, like in life. You want to keep control of your emotions so that you are playing on your own ground and not letting people control you and get under your skin to that regard. I do think the substance here matters, though, because DeSantis, we will never know exactly what DeSantis was involved in. The allegations are that he was involved in torture and force feeding in particular of prisoners, that he was at least there viewing this. There were multiple detainees, which I'll remind you, the overwhelming majority of Guantanamo Bay detainees were never charged with anything. Many of them were just swept up, deemed enemy combatants, and they never brought them to any sort of trial because they couldn't actually find charges that would stick. So important to keep that in mind in terms of who the detainees are. There were quite a large number who said they recalled his face being present at least while they were being force-fed. And he was there at a time that was really the worst. Let's put this up on the screen from Miami Herald. There's been multiple reports about, you know, what involvement he had at Guantanamo. This is Miami Herald. Their headline is "Very Intimate Knowledge What Ron DeSantis Saw While Serving at Guantanamo." One of the things that they point out, the time period when he was serving there was one of the most tumultuous and most truly horrifying in the history of Guantanamo, which is really saying a lot. You had deaths of 3 detainees during that time. You had clashes with guards rolling the facility. You had restraint chairs introduced during that time, during the height of a massive hunger strike, facilitating the force feeding of prisoners. As I said, this wasn't just like one detainee that said they were called him. It was a fairly significant number. Nobody has been able to fully confirm that. I don't think there's any doubt that he would have been well aware of all of these things that were going on while he was there as a JAG officer at the facility. And then the most important piece is, I think he came away from that experience, you know, seeing the torture, or at least being aware of the torture and the deaths and the clashes and the totally, you know, unconstitutional and unconscionable treatment of these quote-unquote enemy combatants, this fake designation, and all of those horrors. And he came away and was a very strident defender of it. I think that's important in terms of who he is, what his judgment is, his view of the world, his view of, you know, our responsibilities internationally and the way that we should treat human beings. So regardless of whatever his involvement technically was, to me the most important point is that he was there during the height of some of the worst abuses, and he came away and was incredibly aggressive and strident in defending it.
Well, and that's another point about strength, where if you were going to answer that question, and if you still believe that, you're like, listen, I did my job while I was there. I never tortured anybody. This is fake news. Next question. It's one of those where, again, you're just coming at it from a position where it seems to me that he either appears like he wants to try and always like own the person but doesn't necessarily do it, or it comes from a position of genuinely being rattled by it. Either, I think both are lack of self-confidence, which is very important if you're going to run for office.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Out of 780 individuals that went through Guantanamo since it opened, only 32 remain there. 11 of those have been charged with a crime. I mean, this is a stain on America. It's, you know, a stain on every administration since the Bush administration, including the Bush administration, that they have not been able to close down this facility. And, you know, I find it a real stain on his judgment and his career that he continued to defend what he saw up close and personal.
The stupidest thing about Guantanamo, let me just say this,
Yeah.
is that the reason you can't charge these guys with a crime, even though in some cases they are dead to rights guilty, is because they were tortured and we violated their rights. And if we ever put them on trial, they could get off because we couldn't use any of the information that we gleaned against them in a court of law, which is what FBI agents who were there at the time said. They said, don't do this because by doing this, we can't prosecute them, and now it's inadmissible, and now you have a case where you literally have the 9/11 mastermind sitting in a cell, and you can't charge him in a U.S. court. And you're going through some BS military tribunal trial, which doesn't make any sense, even though, of course, if you're going to prosecute him, he has protections under U.S. law. It was all foreseen at the time in 2001. So you can thank George W. Bush and Dick Cheney and all the other idiots who said that there was clear and present danger, and it's 2023, and we still have a goddamn mess on our hands.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
thank you, George W. Bush.
That's right.
For doing this.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.